Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's Weekly Wisdom. Now, I am very excited to be joining the one, the only Crystal Washington. Crystal is a speaker that I admire and respect and hope to be like when I grow up. She made a couple of Facebook posts and we are going to dive into those. But before we do, we need a proper introduction. So everyone wants a piece of our next speaker. In fact, she was once attacked while riding in a convertible by a bird wanting a piece of her afro for its nest. Technology strategist and futurist Crystal Washington works with organizations that want to leverage technology to increase profits and productivity. Crystal has educated and entertained audiences across the globe. She regularly appears on major television networks and in business publications for her expertise. Crystal is the author of the books One Tech Action and The Social Media Why. And outside of technology, Crystal considers herself to be an adventurous travel fanatic. She once followed a random barefooted mountain man with a machete up an active volcano. Luckily, she lived and she's here with us right now. So again, thank you for joining me today, Crystal Washington. So a barefooted mountain man with a machete, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
That's a whole long story. Actually, a comedy troupe brought me in to tell that story. It's so ridiculous. But let's just say this is what happens when you go with a group of friends led by a gentleman who thinks he has more knowledge than he does, and you end up having to rely on the Rastafarians that grow cannabis in the rainforest on a mountain to get you out alive. So that's kind of a summary of the story. We'd need much more time and probably some tea or wine to go over.
So in a couple of months, we'll come back to this and have a Weekly Wisdom all about this story. I like it. It will be in the evening. There will be wine. All right. So I do want to state that the topic of our conversation today is going to be mental health. Now, Crystal and I are not mental health professionals. We are just two women who believe in the power of mental health and maintaining it, as well as the importance of it. So with that, I wanted to get that disclaimer out the way. But Crystal, is there anything that you want our audience to know about you before we jump in?
No, I mean, it was a great introduction. I love the fact that you mentioned we are not mental health professionals. And so we are sharing our opinions from personal experience, some professional, but not medical. So I think that's very important to just point out that everybody needs to make sure that they're seeking medical advice for their particular needs.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So the reason why I asked you for this meeting today specifically is because you had made two Facebook posts 2 days apart, both of them around mental health. So we're going to dive into one and then we're going to dive into the other. So I'm going to go ahead and read your first one that you posted on August 4th. And it's, what label are you shedding? I've had some hilarious conversations with African-American women elders over the past few days. In one conversation, an elder requested serious help from someone in a specialized field. Instead of aid, she was met with an excuse, but was then told, "You're a strong Black woman." The elder said her first thought was F you. I laughed my butt off because it really is the best response to that non-compliment. And then I realized, do you want to read the second part since this is your words?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
I don't have it right in front of me.
Okay. I don't want to be a strong Black woman. No matter who is giving the compliment, and that includes other Black women, the person is patting us on the head for our ability to carry tremendous weight and suffering. Sometimes it feels like the compliment giver is mentally measuring us for a saddle. Nope. I want to be kind, industrious, creative, innovative, loving, strategic, adaptable. Any of these words in challenging times. And while I do have impressive upper arm strength for a child-sized lady, I do not wish for strong to be associated with my character. Let's get free. So the reason why this post touched me so strongly is you had put it in the context of Black women, but have you ever had where like the universe just comes out and gives you the information that you need right at the time that you need it?
All the time.
Right? It was amazing. I was actually struggling really, really bad with anxiety. My day job's in the grocery industry, last year being in the stores. My daughter is 5. She's starting kindergarten. We had the Delta variant. Everything was coming together and it just got to be a little bit too much. And so I started talking to a professional and she recommended that I take medication. And I've always been of the proponent, if you need it, take it, right? There's something that our brains are telling us that we need. But when it was my turn, I'm looking at it going, I should be strong enough. Like, I don't want to do this. And then I read your post, and I don't know if it was a comment or something that I forgot to copy and paste, but there was something in there that said, I'd rather be happy than strong. And as soon as I read that, I took the top off and I took my first one. Oh, wow. And I have to tell you that it has been life-changing. It's still like, there's still moments, but now it's moments instead of weeks. So I figured if I was going through something like this, maybe there was a lot of other people that were going through something like this. So talk to me from your perspective. What does it mean for you to be free and happy versus strong? Like, why did you choose that specific language?
Well, I think we have to separate a couple things here, because I think like with anything in life, there's layers to it, right? So at first I want to deal with it in the context of Black women, because we have to specifically look at it here, because people outside of the culture may not understand. I think sometimes we can hear things going on in another culture or another gender, and we draw parallels, but we don't have all the little cultural nuances that one would inside of it, right? And so within my culture of African-American women specifically, it has been something that has been encoded almost in our DNA for 400 plus years now, that you're strong. Like someone could come and kill your children. This started during slavery. You're strong. And it was a way to bolster people. And for a long time, you didn't have the privilege of sitting in your feelings. You had to compartmentalize. It meant death if you did not, right? And so it's a carryover from those types of things. And so occasionally you'll find non-African Americans saying that to Black women, but you see that a lot within our culture as well. A lot of men will do that sometimes when they are the ones that are harming. I'm not saying most Black men harm, but I'm saying a lot of the ones that do that are in that situation. And some other Black women, because what's done to us, we project on other people. So there's a very specific layer that I have to point out, that if you're outside of the culture, you may or may not be aware of this. But for me, I'm saying, hey, y'all, I'm part of the team, but I'm not taking this title anymore. I don't like it. Yep. Now, there's a greater layer for womanhood and suffering. And I can't speak globally so much. I don't feel comfortable doing that, although I know a little bit. But, in our society, when we look at how women are treated versus men in a lot of situations, when we look at the medical community and how men are more likely to be believed that they're in pain than even women, when we look at things like birth control and all the side effects, and then when they came out with one for men, they had a fraction of the side effects. It was canceled because you're prioritized. So even as women in general in this culture, we are held up to be that's a compliment, but it's actually not really a compliment. It's a way to soothe the speaker. So rather than acknowledging the pain that someone's going through or figuring out a way to help, it's you're so strong. And then women, we do this to each other because it's been done to us, right? And so, and then we internalize it thinking that that is our goal. I know for me as an African-American and a woman, the two words that I really fight are strong, and that's coming a little bit more from my Black womanhood, and nice, which is something that a lot of women have been socialized with. And I will say a lot of my Caucasian female counterparts, they've been saddled with that one more so than even African-American women, right? And I think it's just a matter of figuring out what serves you, what honors your truth, not having your humanity, having to fake a smile when you're in pain or when someone is harming you because you're afraid of being nice or not looking strong. It doesn't serve us. And so that's kind of where I was going with that post. And since you took the context and even expanded it, I just wanted to make sure that I made that cultural inference as well, because it's extremely important that we look at things within context as well as the other layers where it applies.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many pieces to this, but that's one thing that after I read your post, I started thinking about all the times that I've heard the label like the strong Black queen. And you're right, that is inundated everywhere. And your post brings context to that, sometimes strength, I'm from the South. And so that backhanded compliment, right? Like you mentioned, and as you say, it makes the speaker feel better. It's like whenever you're going to a funeral and you don't know what to say and you say, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's not for the person that you're speaking to. That's for you to make you feel better. So it brought in a lot of context. And thank you for bringing the cultural piece into it, because I think it's a really important piece to understand that, yes, we are all human, but there are very different aspects to the different cultures that we experience.
Well, and I think we all have words. If we were to really sit with them and jot them down, from a cultural context, when I say cultural, we can break this down in different ways. We're all parts of multiple cultures, right? So yes, we could talk about race. We could talk about, national origin, ancestry, religion. There's so many regions. There's so many levels of cultures. But within our cultures, there's always these coded words that harm us. There's cultures I'm not a part of that, their words are things like respect, which are honorable, but I watch some of my friends get tangled in those words and I see how they're weaponized, right? So I think we just have to be careful to make sure that words are not being weaponized in us, but at the same time, in a way where we don't even realize it. It's like being shot with a gun that confetti comes out along with the bullet, right? You're still shot, you're bleeding, but confetti and glitter, yay!
Yay!
Wow.
That's a really good analogy that you use, because there's so many words. Like whenever I think of the word, like I think aggressive, I'm a very dominant female. And so when somebody says that I'm aggressive, like that triggers me, right? But then there are the words like strong. That's like that gun with the confetti. So that's a really good analogy for that. Never thought about that. Can I use that in the future?
Go for it.
Okay. Thank you. I like it.
The futurist says you can use it in the future.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the second post. And this was just a couple of days later. I'm going to ask you a personal question and you can completely not answer it if you don't want to. Okay. But these posts were made 2 days apart. Was there something that was just like heavy on the mind that was causing the post, or it felt right?
No, I don't think so. Most of my posts, when I have like my thoughtful Facebook posts, because I mix them up between things that I'm an expert on and then just observations. I like to have conversations going. And a lot of times things that I see around me, what's interesting is sometimes they're kind of percolating. I'll see something and I'll collect it. And then a week later, I'll see something else pertaining to that same thing and I'll collect it in another conversation. And then finally, one day I'll wake up and it's like, you're supposed to address this now. And I do it. So no, I don't think there was anything in particular. Sometimes it looks coincidental when things seem to line up, but there's outside of my professional type posts that I put on there, informative, there's no rhyme or reason. It's kind of like, I feel like this is a topic. Maybe this will help someone. Maybe this will be something for the greater good that we can have a discussion on.
Well, I have to tell you, your posts are helping. Okay. So this post was on August 6th. And it's, what word are you shedding or rejecting? Many of us are dealing with death, loss, and sickness right now. I look at my timeline and text and it's heartbreaking. However, I'm also seeing a pattern. I'm seeing people being lauded for being strong in the midst of horrors. I'm seeing people being applauded for keeping a stiff upper lip. What follows are the thoughts of someone who is not a medical professional and is in no way trained as a mental health professional. So take this with a grain of salt. Friends, it's okay to fall apart sometimes. It's okay to cry. It's okay to not be strong. The world will not end if we take a moment to process our grief. Now, people work through things differently, and sometimes it does involve keeping it moving. However, this culture of work-home separation, of keeping a stiff upper lip, of duty to insert whatever that doesn't really matter in the long run over family self is broken. It is no less laudable to cry than it is to be stoic. For those of us who are interacting with people we care about who are experiencing loss, I'll share something that I started doing a few years ago. When I find myself rushing to comfort someone, I ask myself of my motive. Am I telling someone not to cry because crying is not helpful to them at the moment, or because I'm uncomfortable with their tears? Am I trying to find a silver lining because that perspective is actually helpful to them, or because it eases my own mind about a horrible situation? Am I sharing how I acted in a similar situation as theirs because it helps them, or because it validates me? That's my 2 cents. Now you do what's best for you and yours. So this is another one that really talks about how, as a society, we're collectively going through some very traumatic times. Individual cultures are taking a look at things that we've never had to before. Other cultures are finally having the chance to say, look at this. And then as a collective, we're going through a pandemic. right? So there is that first line, there is a loss across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So when you wrote this post, I like how you put, this is some of the things that's helped me, because as somebody who has been described as Spock in the past, emotions are a little bit scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to understand what to do to help in these situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so how have you learned these different tips and tactics as you've gone through, if that makes sense?
A lot of it's listening. I listen to people, and I'm surrounded with very wise people, and they'll say things and I'll collect it. You know, like the one about sharing about yourself when someone's going through something. One of my brothers, brilliant gentleman, he has more degrees than I don't even know what he could do with them all. But I remember years ago when we were in our 20s, him saying, you know, we realize most of the time when people do that, it's because they're trying to soothe themselves. They're making it about them. They're not centering it on the other person. It doesn't help the other person. And again, this was early 20s. And I thought about it. I was like, hey, you know, and then some of the stuff is I am a huge fan and proponent of therapy. Mm-hmm. I've been going for many years. I joke that I'm putting my therapist's entire family through college. Even during the pandemic, did not miss a single appointment. We just did them virtual. And so much so that, I mean, I talked to like my younger nieces and nephews. One of my younger nephews, you know, had multiple conversations where I asked him, do you know why TT goes to therapy? And he said, no. And I said, have you ever heard people say, you know, when you have issues or something, you need to see a therapist? He said, yep. I said, that's not why TT goes. I explained to him, because he calls me TT. I explained to him, I said, you know, some people go to a dentist when there's a problem, and that's the only time they go to the dentist. I said, other people, they go in for cleanings 2, 3, 4 times a year so that they won't have a problem. I said, we don't judge the people that go when there is a problem. They may not be able to afford to go to the dentist all the other times. They may not have insurance. I said, but what my look at therapy is, it's like getting those cleanings. I go so I don't have a big blow up, you know, get tools along the way. So I'm sure that some of the things I'm communicating are lessons I've learned directly through therapy, and some of the things I've learned through leveraging the tools and being able to sit silent a little bit and look around me and just observe.
Yeah. And I really like how you line that up with therapy. That's something that whenever I'm talking to people, it's the same thing. Like we go for physical checkups. Why don't we go for mental checkups, right? Mm-hmm. Our brain is such a big piece and influences all of the other pieces that we need to do a better job of taking care of it when and how it makes the most sense to us. So thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would also say that there's something powerful about having an objective party. Mm-hmm. And again, you have to find the right therapist, because I mean, they're terrible therapists, just like there's terrible dentists that, you know, are inflict pain on purpose or just terrible, right? Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. But having an objective third party who has no motive, you know, like even if you have great friends or family, they see you through a certain lens. They might have a reason for wanting you to make certain choices, not necessarily evil or something, but there's always an agenda. Even when we mean well, we have agendas. But having this extra person on the outside who can ask you the questions, because a good therapist isn't giving you answers, but they can make you look at situations from different angles, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. I think about therapy, not only has it impacted how I react to the world, but I wouldn't be a successful businesswoman if I hadn't been in therapy so long, because all your personal issues show up in your business too.
They do. Yes. As a relatively new entrepreneur, I'm working through a few of those myself. It's like, really, this is how it's going to show. Okay, cool. In here, there's a specific line, and it's okay to fall apart sometimes. It's okay to cry. It's okay not to be strong. So why do we need that reminder, especially right now, that it's okay to not be okay?
Well, I think part of it is, now that I'm really thinking about this, I remember at this time, there was stuff going on all around me where I was watching people suffering, but being lauded for suffering in silence, if that makes sense. Like they were saying, it was weird. It was like I would see people that I know in real life having conversations, and even post on Facebook the horrible things that were going on around them, the death that was that was around them, some of their recent diagnosis with different things. But they were continuing on, and they were going to, bulldoze through it and act like nothing was wrong. They were going to do everything they're supposed to do. I have a duty. And I just remember, and everybody's like, yes, duty, get what you have to get done. And I'm just like, this is sick. And I wasn't judging anybody. So I have to be very clear. I wasn't saying that people were sick and that it was intentional, but I just remember thinking, this is really sick that we're watching people. It's almost like watching someone cut themselves in front of you and clapping and saying, yes, you're doing a good job. They're calling out for help, but saying, I'm bleeding, but I'm going to keep moving on.
Be strong. Yeah.
And people are like, yay, keep going. Versus saying, whoa, stop, this is getting infected. Let's take you to the hospital. Are you all right? Why are you cutting yourself in the first place? Let's sit down for a minute. And so I just watched this. And like I said, now that we're getting deeper into this, I do remember that triggering for me with this post. I was like, man, this is sick. I got to tell people it's okay. Like, it's fine. Cry, fall apart for a minute. Do what you got to do. Because that's not healthy. And then all the people cheering at that, when it's their turn, they're going to reflect the same behaviors, and they're going to teach their children to do the same things. And I'm not saying people should be quote unquote weak or not get through things, but we're humans. And so it's okay to process and then still do what you need to do.
Yeah, I think that processing and acknowledging that, hey, this sucks. Like, what is happening sucks. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. You know, I think that's an important part that, you know, when we talk about specifically the word strong, as a society, we put so much, and especially like before, I don't know, the last decade, we put so much in how somebody continues acting like life is normal, even when life isn't normal. And so tucking away all of that negativity and hiding it and just showing up with a smile in this last 18 months, like there's been a lot of suck out of the last 18 months. But I think part of it is it's helped us prioritize both our lives as well as mental health, and helped us understand that I'm going to show up and be amazing no matter what. We're on an 18-month marathon. That's not over yet. Everybody's getting tired and reaching that limit if they haven't already reached it.
Well, I think some of us are learning and some of us are doubling down. You know, it's interesting. I actually remember the first time I saw this on display, and let's call it capitalistic culture. And for anybody who's listening and it's like, oh gosh, she's going to go into some socialism. But I'm not. I'm a person who, I own a business. My husband owns a business. We own a third business together. Trust me. I'm good with business and capitalism. But let's call it this kind of capitalistic culture. And I remember I was working for corporate America, and I had a boss older than me. And I do think different cultures react to things like what I'm about to say differently too. But I remember he announced that his mother was ill and she was on her deathbed. And he said his brother called him and said, you got to fly home immediately. And I said, oh man, I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. Is there anything you need me to pick up while you're gone? He said, well, you know, because I'm thinking he's going to get in the car, right? Leave work, get in the car. He said, well, no, you know, corporate's coming in. I can't fly out until tomorrow evening when they're done. She should be fine until then. And I said, forget this place. I literally said, forget this place. What are you doing? I said, let me know what you need. Let the other managers know. We'll fill in. He said, no, it's fine. It's fine. So of course, the next day he gets on the plane. His mother passes away while he's on the plane.
Oh no.
And so, but when he gets back and he tells us this, because now it's over a week later, because I guess he had stayed for the funeral as well at this point. He tells us what happened. He's like, yeah, but you know, that's kind of how life goes. And I just remember just thinking, oh my, this is sick. Now, don't know his relationship to his mother, although from the way he described it, it sounded like they had a really wonderful relationship. So using his own words. But I just remember thinking, oh, there's something very wrong here. And then there were some other people there, including his boss, that were like, oh, well, you know, you did, you know, she would have wanted you to carry on at work and get your work done. No mother wants their child to see them on it. So this all feeds into the same culture. The world will not stop spinning if we stop and take care of ourselves. In fact, if you or I were to fall over dead tomorrow, our clients, our workplaces, or whatever else would keep on going. Everyone be fine.
When I think that's one of the things that's been a smaller awakening, but definitely over the last year, a larger awakening. Because I remember I was told by a brutal boss. I started my career working as a line cook in kitchens. And we've heard the stories about chefs, and God bless chefs. But he told me, because I was getting a little bit too big for my britches, and he told me, he says, here's the deal. If you don't come in tomorrow, I will still function. And that was a hard lesson to learn in my very early 20s, but it was also something that carried me throughout my corporate, because I always remember, if what I'm sacrificing for this company, like, if I don't come in tomorrow, will they even notice?
Yeah.
And I think with all of the furloughs, the layoffs, everything that happened, people are realizing that a company is run by humans, yes, but it is still a company. It is a non-thinking entity. And it will not notice if you don't come in tomorrow. So prioritizing us and our families and those who will miss us if we don't come in tomorrow is more critical than it's ever been.
I think, and I mean, here's the thing, even if there's a hiccup at your company, right? Let's say that you are pretty important. It'll still find a way. It's not going to fold because you're gone. So, I think not only acknowledging when we need a moment, but being in tune enough to realize when people are calling out for help. That's something we haven't been taught to do. And so we tend to rely on packaging. And I say that as someone from a sales and marketing background, so if someone packages and says, I'm making my way through, keeping a stiff upper lip, blah, 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 blah. A lot of other people take that person at face value because that's the packaging. But if you watch people closely, you'll see where they're at. So like I said, some of the posts that I saw where people were like, yay, you're so brave. You're so strong. And like I said, the person's bleeding. I saw that. I saw it for what it was. And I'm like, oh no, I'm reaching out to people on the side. You okay? What do you need? It's okay to, so I think training ourselves to support people and let people know it's okay to have feelings and to get help and to speak the truth and to take medicine and to see a therapist or whatever that looks like, and to draw boundaries and to cut people off. I think these are all valuable things as a non-medical professional.
As a non-medical professional, yes. Final question for this topic, and then we'll move on to a little bit more of a fun question. But my audience, those that tune in for the weekly wisdom, are primarily leaders, the newer and middle level leaders. So speaking to them, what advice would you give them as to how to navigate this very, very challenging time in leadership?
So I have to answer this as a futurist. And that is that it's very important that we think about what we want the future to look like, what we want our companies to look like in the future, what we want our culture to be, because oftentimes what we say our culture isn't what it is, how we want our employees to feel supported. That's one. Two, we have to look at the trends all around us. We are living in a renaissance right now. Most people don't realize it. And just like any past renaissance, there's a few people that get it and build a fortune or change the trajectory of humanity. But most of the people, by and far, 99.9%, go about their everyday lives because no one realizes they're living in a crucial moment in history. I am telling everyone we are living in a crucial moment in history. Like, this is epic. So as a leader, you get a chance to look at some of these trends because employment's not going to look the same. If someone has a company right now where they have employees, they have a labor shortage problem, supply chain issue, look at what you want, look at the trends, and then start to actively design the future you want for your organization. And then start planning backwards from that. So you're basically reaching into the future and pulling your desired future back. So your actions have to start lining up. You start doing things now that puts you on the course that you want to be on in 5 to 10 years, knowing that what you've been doing the last 5 to 10 years when it comes to employees and mental health is not going to work going forward. It's broken, but it's a good thing because we're living in a renaissance. So we have an opportunity to not fix it, but to innovate it.
I love that. Actively design the future that you want. I just got goosebumps while you were saying that because I'm like, yes, I never thought about that, but we are in a renaissance and we are looking at creating the future that we want because the present has given us that opportunity, whether we wanted it or not.
Yes, right.
Right. All right. So now I heard a rumor that you're going to be on TV. I need to hear all about this.
Oh, okay. So I'm on a project with Exploration Station. Exploration is spelled, starts with the letter X, so Exploration Station. And it's called Life 2.0. So I'm on season 2. Season 1, it's a wonderful science-based show where it talks about all these wild future concepts that many people don't realize how far we've gotten in terms of technology and science. And so this season, we're talking about things like cloning. We're talking about things like pushing the pause button on human life. Can you actually pause somebody for a period of time? People might be surprised what's already happened. The future of dating and mating when it comes to incorporating technology and where we are with that. And again, much further along than most people realize. Mm-hmm. So if anyone's interested in watching the show, Summer, they can go to Exploration Station's website and find where it airs in their local area. For many places, it airs on a Fox station on a Saturday morning, but it varies based on the city. And it's also available on like Roku and a whole bunch of other streaming services as well. But it's Life 2.0, second season. And I am the futurist that pops up on every episode.
Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait. I'm going to be like, I know that person.
And she's not strong. Look at her.
You are not strong, but madam, you are amazing. So thank you so very much for being here today. And to my weekly wisdom tuner inners, I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to go with it. Thank you very much for joining Crystal and myself this week. And as always, don't forget, you do not have to be strong, but you absolutely got this. I'll see you next week.